Welcome to Thrive Off the Ladder, the show that gives women the encouragement and guidance to take their talents outside of a corporate office. Through candid conversations and wisdom sharing, we deep dive into the evolution of work and how to step off the ladder that wasn't built for us in the first place. I'm your host, Twanna Toliver.
Hey, Toya.
Hey, Twanna, how are you?
I'm good. I forget that you're on the West Coast now, so it's like extra early for you. Good early morning for you.
Yes, girl. It's like getting used to the time change is a little different, but yeah, it's early
Yes,
here. Mhm.
yes, definitely.
Mhm.
I'm so glad. You're a fan favorite, even as I transition from higher this to thrive off the ladder. Basically, the premise is almost still the same.
Mhm.
Is equipping, encouraging, and empowering women to thrive off the ladder, to
Mhm.
be able to do their best work, live their fullest potential outside the confines of a corporate office, if they choose to.
Mhm.
And I wanted to have you on here because I've been the biggest fan of your newsletters. And I know that is just a culmination of the work you have been doing on. Matter of fact, I'm going to let you talk about the work you're doing and the book that you're writing because I'm so excited. And I'm sure you've been on the podcast Higher Than This at least twice that I
Mhm.
remember. And you are a fan favorite. And I'm just sure that the audience would love to see and hear what you're up to. So tell us what's going on.
Sure. So, first, thank you again for having me on, and I'm so glad that your audience connects with what we're talking about and the discussions that we've had. They fill me up and fill my clients up, and so I truly appreciate that. So, yeah, what's new? So, I run a coaching practice called Woke Up Worthy. Prior to this, I had a coaching brand that was specifically for lawyers. And I've now expanded Woke Up Worthy, where I am coaching women of color. And so I help women of color transition from the careers they were trained in to the careers they were built for. Thank you. And what the book is about, what I'm up to, what I talk about, what my newsletter about is really building a practice and a coaching framework
Mhm.
around distinguishing what coaches often call limiting beliefs, right? Which are beliefs that hold us back, right? I can't draw, I'm not good at math, etc. From oppression and internalized oppression, right? And when I talk about internalized oppression, it's these stories that come from outside of ourselves, right? So oppressive narratives come from systematic oppression, right?
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
these narratives that we internalize that set us up to fail, right? And so they stem from societal and systemic issues. So, I can think of, just being a Black woman. One of oppressive belief or narrative that we hear often is, Black people are lazy, right? And so if you're a right? And if you're a high achieving Black woman, you may have heard that and you brush it off, but what you don't realize is you internalize that belief in a way where it's like, I'm going to show I'm not that way. And so then we overwork
Yes.
and we burn ourselves out. We take it on, we do it ourselves because we're trying to prove to be against something else. Right. And so, what, when you think about internalized oppression, it's the negative stereotypes, the attitudes, the beliefs held about a group by the dominant culture. And I say it's like a dirty mirror by society.
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah.
dirty mirror. And we're looking into that dirty mirror and we're believing that's our true reflection. And
Yeah.
so we're constantly trying to prove that reflection wrong, trying to say we're more beautiful than what this mirror is showing.
Absolutely.
And right. And so those are a big, I find in my practice with the women that I've been coaching, it's a larger issue. And so I coach differently around internalized oppression versus limiting beliefs. And I do a lot of work in distinguishing the two and sort of building toolkits and helping my clients build toolkits to navigate oppression, right? Because it's not going away,
No,
right?
definitely not going away. It's definitely not going
It's
away.
not
But your work says that you can thrive even in the midst of it.
It says
Right.
you can thrive even in the midst of it, and you don't have to compensate for it, right? And you don't have to overwork for it, right?
Absolutely.
I love the Black girl magic and Black excellence. They're motivational, but they can also lead to overwork and overgiving and feeling like you can't make a mistake and being superhuman, right?
Yes.
Which also is to our detriment, right? And believing we have to be this level of perfect, especially in a space like entrepreneurship where failure is part of the thing.
It is.
Right.
It definitely is. And that's why
Right.
I wanted to have this discussion. And this conversation is about the freedom to be basic, because you wrote a
Right.
newsletter a couple of weeks ago that I was like, it was like in support of basic bitches. And I
Right.
get it. I don't come for me, y'all. You like, we get
That's
it.
the title of it. That's the
That's the
title.
title. That's the title. It is what it is. But the whole point, let's not forget about what it's about. And the whole point of the newsletter was in support of just being basic, because we cannot always be at this like high level all the time. And everything is so ultra competitive. You can't even work out now without having a leaderboard. Everything is a leaderboard.
Mhm.
I was like, I just want to move.
Right. 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 Exactly.
Can I just
Exactly.
move? No, I'm not an athlete. I just want to move my body. Right. I don't
Right.
want to compete with someone I don't even know on the next bike or on the next treadmill. I just want to move my body. So everything is ultra competitive. And so when I read this newsletter, I was like, I was able to see how this plays a part in entrepreneurship, because, and I get it, business is competitive. I get it. But it does not have to be so competitive that it sometimes it works against you.
Right. Right. So I think in our incredibly, as you mentioned, competitive culture, what happens is we start to base our self-worth on how we measure up next to someone else, right?
Yes.
And so it's like we have to be smarter, fitter, fashionable, more beautiful, right? In order to feel good about ourselves. But, it's impossible, right? Literally impossible for everyone to be above average at the same time. We can't all be pretty. We can't all be smarter than the next one. We can't all be, I always say, like a better driver than all
Yes.
these other poor drivers on the
Or
road,
make the
right?
most money.
And make the most money.
Yeah.
Right, right. We
It's
can't.
ebbs and flows. Like, you can literally look at your balance sheet this quarter and you had a great quarter. And the
Right,
next quarter is like, yikes.
right. And if you base your self-worth or the idea of how valuable you are as an individual on these comparative matrix, when you see that as an entrepreneur, okay, this quarter I did well and the next quarter I didn't, you can start to internalize that and say, it's about me. I'm not valuable. I'm not worthy. I don't know what I'm doing, whatever those things are. And it's like, here's the truth about humans, right? Which is what I say. Like, we're exceptional at a few things, we are about average at most things, like most of us. And then there are a few things where we're below average.
Yeah.
That's what I say. That's what it means to be basic. That's a basic bitch. That's being
human. And the thing is too, if you're someone in business, you also have to realize that there are ebbs and flows in business that sometimes really don't have anything to do with you.
right.
There are a lot of outside forces, the economy,
Right.
government regulations, anything seasonal. Some businesses are seasonal. So there's so many things that come at play that can determine your bottom line. And the whole point of being in business is for you to be able to look at the overall picture and see where you need to make adjustments.
Right. Right.
Right.
Right.
You may not even realize, oh, I did some professional development this quarter. That's why my expenses are high.
Right. Right.
You don't even realize that.
Right. Right.
So
And separating out your feelings of being valuable from those activities is a part of it. And we're just never taught to deal with that reality. It's always
Yeah.
like, work harder. Like, everything that I see is like people aren't willing to work, and then that's why they're not successful. And I'm like,
I don't think that's it. Yeah. It's
everybody
played
I
out.
know, everybody I know works extremely hard.
Work it to the bone. Like,
Working to the
literally
bone.
work it to the bone. And so
particularly women, there's a statistic, I think it's something like 11% of women-owned businesses make over $50,000 a year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of entrepreneurs will trot out this statistic to be like, you need to be part of the 11%. Like, you need to work harder and then you would do it. And I'm like, that doesn't even make sense, like, in logic, because, like, if we just did randomized flip a coin, we would get something closer to 50% of the
Yeah.
businesses. When you have that number, there's clearly some oppressive forces. There are clearly, whether it's access to capital, whatever it is, that are outside of us that are causing these issues. And so I think there's freedom in saying, this is happening to me, this is what's going on. It doesn't mean I'm not going to work through it. It doesn't mean I'm not going to, move forward. But I'm
Yeah.
also not going to say that I'm not valuable because I'm not in that 11%. You're going to say I'm valuable, and I'm going to keep going.
Either way.
I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be flexible. And so there's a value in telling the truth.
Oh, I love that. It's so much the truth, and will set you free on so many
It will set you free.
Yes, it definitely will. And so with regards to this whole idea of, being basic, like, it has a negative connotation regardless. It's negative
Mhm.
in society and popular culture. So how can we learn to start embracing it and kind of redefining it and just putting a positive spin on being basic, especially in the context of entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So I think the best way personally, and then I'll talk about in the context of entrepreneurship, for yourself, I think it's about developing self-compassion. And
Mhm.
so by that, I mean, stop labeling ourselves and our accomplishments as good or bad, better or worse, right? It's easier said than done, but it's more about, like, how can we accept ourselves, flaws and all? How can we accept our businesses as they are and still have goals and still have dreams and not attach our self-worth to the outcome? And so it's really that internal work of being compassionate to yourself, treating yourself with the same care and kindness that you would a family member or a
Yeah.
friend, hugging yourself, loving yourself, meditating for yourself, understanding that, particularly in our culture, and I'm going to speak particularly to women of color, we are working hard. And
So hard.
sometimes it's so hard. And there is beauty in us appreciating that and not comparing our work and our worth to someone else. It's unconditionally accepting yourself. And I think that's the same way with entrepreneurship. It's learning, if you unconditionally accept, like, this is what's happening for my business, then you stop personalizing. Okay, like you said, my revenue was down this quarter. And you can see, once your brain is focused in on the truth, then you can see, like, oh, like you said, maybe I spent more on personal development and that's going to have a bigger impact in my Q3, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
maybe it's the economy, and the
Yeah.
economy is real and there's some contraction there. And so I'm going to continue on, but perhaps, and I know this is like a bad idea in entrepreneurship, perhaps I need to get a part-time job, right, to continue this dream. There's nothing wrong with that. Then there's
There's
no
nothing wrong with
shame
that.
attached with moving forward.
Yeah.
It's just loving yourself, right? And having the courage to not compare, which is, I know it's not easy, which is why, like we talked earlier about my book or whatever, it's called The Courage Practice. It's a practice for a reason. All right.
Yeah, it's not easy. And even like when I think of, thank you for that. When I think of entrepreneurship, the entrepreneur mindset, at the end of the day, is just a growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to do what it takes to move forward, but without detriment to your health. You don't have to work, you don't have to hustle and grind. You just have to figure out a way to move forward, to continue to grow, not only your business, but yourself. Entrepreneurship is definitely, it's not easy. It's not for the faint at heart, but it's a character builder.
Yeah.
It's just something that you don't get when you're working in corporate 40 hours, 9 to 5. I don't even know if that's still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever, hybrid is just something because you get to see, you're so vulnerable. There's so much of yourself that is exposed. There's so much growth that happens when you are in charge of your financial destiny. And that can include you saying, oh, this is a lean season and I'm going to take contracted work.
Right.
And that's nothing wrong with that. That shouldn't be an issue. And I love that. And to me, that's not basic.
Right. Because
Uh,
what again, what I was meaning by basic is like being basic human being, right? And the baseline of that is telling the truth even to yourself, right? And
Yeah.
that's not basic because a lot of people aren't telling the truth to themselves,
No,
right?
not
And
at
so
all.
in the in the blog post I talk about like those first round of American Idol, we're always waiting for like the people who can't sing.
Yeah.
Like they're if they're not telling the truth to themselves, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to figure out ways to build our self-esteem that aren't based on the truth. We'll get on shows and embarrass
Yeah.
ourselves. And it's just kind of like
Yeah.
you could be if you told the truth about yourself, maybe your gift is whatever the gift is. And so
Yes.
then you can hire out for things that are not your gifts or whatever. Right. Working on yourself. And exactly. And then, when we talk
Yes.
about entrepreneurship being a character builder, what I often tell my clients is entrepreneurship, oftentimes, if it's this the first time you had to be in charge of your financial destiny, in charge of your day is not set for you, you have to set it up. It's the first time where you start to trust yourself
Yes.
because you are not meeting a deadline for someone else.
Yes.
You have to meet the deadlines for yourself. And what's character building and liberating about that is you realize like, oh, I can do this. Like, oh,
Absolutely.
I can trust myself to make decisions here. I won't go into financial ruin. I'm not going to be homeless and all these things that come to your mind and that flood your brain when you sort of take a chance that is life changing.
Yeah.
You
Definitely.
recognize that no matter, and I'm sure you feel this way. I feel at this point in my life, like no matter what comes my way, because life happens to us all, right?
Always. Yeah.
We don't control it.
No.
I can trust myself to make good decisions. I can trust myself to lead from one step to the next. I can trust myself to keep going. I can trust myself to pick myself back up once there is a failure. And all of that came from deciding to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so I don't think, like you said, you have to be an entrepreneur to get those skills and trust in yourself and confidence in yourself. But there aren't very many avenues for adults to do that.
Definitely not. I can't think of many, maybe parenthood, but I can't.
Yes.
That's a whole nother, but that's
There's
a
a whole
human.
right.
You're responsible for a whole human,
Right.
but yeah, it's definitely, I agree 100%. And I want to piggyback on that. So if we're talking about just being a basic human, right? And when we think of entrepreneurship, a lot of times I see it that we have overcomplicated business. We have overcomplicated, and even the word entrepreneurship I've been told it's intimidating because I feel like it has been hijacked by, a lot of like high growth, the high tech, we just assume, we make that assumption that everything is some kind of tech company, not knowing that the average small business is just a mom and pop shop, whether it's product or service based, and not necessarily a high tech business. And so I get a lot of, emerging and aspiring entrepreneurs who want to overcomplicate business. They feel that's what they need to do. They have to have several products and services, and they feel they need to innovate. And even if it's working, like, oh, this is working, why do you want to change this? They're like, oh, no, I have to add this. They got to do 17 different layers of a funnel. And I'm just like, how can we just simplify? Like, what is your advice to just like simplifying business and being okay with doing that, just simplifying your offerings?
You know what? I love this question because I think what happens in our culture now in entrepreneurship, the loudest voices in terms of being on social media and all that are the folks who have been in business for 15 plus years and they have a team and they have all this. And so, we are a modeling based human species.
Yeah.
And so we think Like, this is what we need. They have 20 offers. I'm going to have 20 offers. And like, okay, they have
Yeah.
20 offers, but they also have like a full-time staff.
Yes.
And so the people who are just running, like a solo business or one or two people, they just don't necessarily have the model or the reach, right, to be on social media like that. So, Google isn't, Instagram isn't serving them up to you. So I
Yep.
think it's conversations like this that you and I are having where we're explaining to people. And I have conversations with my clients, I'm sure you do all the time, where it's
Yes.
like, we just need clients, right? We got one service, we know what we're doing. We're gonna do like a one-page website. Like, we're not gonna
Yeah.
do this whole huge thing, right?
No,
What we're
you
doing,
don't need it.
especially we don't need it, is we're gonna test this offer. Let's go get us some clients. Let's go bring in some money,
Yep.
right?
I love
And
that.
yeah, and you'll see that you could build your business just from that.
Just from that. And
Just
you
from
don't
that.
need to complicate it and just keep adding to it. You could
Right.
literally just have that one widget for 5
Right.
years
Right.
that you're selling and that you're nurturing. And sometimes subtraction is addition when it comes to
Right.
business. Like, just
Right.
literally sometimes just taking away something so it can freeze up your time to maybe focus more on servicing folks and more customer service or whatever that case may be, is even better than just adding on. And
Yeah.
so I just love that idea. And yes, when you see other folks doing things, you have to say in the back of your head, oh, they must have a team. No one is on. If you see someone on social media, literally, everything is flawless, reels, TikToks, everything, they have a team. They are not doing that themselves.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I also think this comes back to our humanness and being basic, is that, and back to oppression, where it feels like we have to show ourselves as perfect in order to even get started. Like, we need to have this flashy website. I need to have the photo shoot. I got to have the 18 different right before, and we're not going to tell anybody that we're
Yeah.
even working on it
Yes.
until we can say,
the
ta-da.
working in silence thing.
Right.
I've seen that all the time.
Yeah.
I never understood that. But
Yeah.
you're in business, you need to tell people, but okay.
Right. Right. And then I'm going to pop out and be perfect. And it's like, no, like, let's
Yeah.
just start. And then even the need to start with, like, depending on there's like a lot of people have a love-hate, I know I do, relationship with Instagram and social media and all that.
I
But
know
there are
I do.
there are a lot of industries where your best source of marketing may not be social media. It might be
Exactly.
referral-based. There are other ways to market. So anyway,
Yeah, say that for the people in the back. Yes,
Right.
marketing was around before social media.
Yes.
Yeah.
Particularly if you have like a large network from, your previous roles or whatever you do, or socially, if you're involved in a lot of activities, whatever. All of those things are like kind of just making it simple and starting where you are. You don't need a whole bunch of bells and whistles.
No, even just like the old school, just emailing people and hitting people up and say, hey, this is what I'm working on. Do you know anybody? That is just like, that has been so instrumental for me over the past couple of months, when I just like literally picked myself out of, literally, when I say picked myself out of social media and just literally just have been having like one-on-one conversations with folks and networking in real time, has been so good for me. So and that's an old school basic tactic, right?
Exactly.
But, and so I love this. This has been so good, Toya. Such a great conversation in support and freedom of being basic.
Exactly.
And how, it just, not only it's good for life in general, it's good for business. Just not overcomplicating, simplified approach to entrepreneurship, simplified approach to life. You just, you'll be happier. I love it.
You will. You will.
I love it. Focus on just being simple.
Self-compassion, loving yourself, not beating yourself up.
Yes, you
not
can
comparing yourself.
Yeah, you can take a walk, you could take a run without being on an app to see what someone else was doing, how many steps they got. Like, it's, we have to really get back to some basic humanity and compassion. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
for ourselves. Thank you. Thank you for this
Yes.
conversation, Toya. It was wonderful. And let everyone know when your book comes out, we'll have you back on to talk about it. I'm so excited. And yeah, I can't wait for it to come out because the work you're doing is so needed. And I'm so glad that you are doing it. And I hope we'll have more conversations about this because it's definitely something that we need to talk about more often. So I
Yes.
appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Thanks, Twanna.